Hello all. Now you might have been waiting a long time for this, my story, part 2 really, because the first one was the gods and angels. I had to get into a bit of nitty gritty of what led up to gods and angels. Backtracking to before and after I was born. This is about the part of realisation, you know, like when I did the video, I just kind of realised something. The penny had dropped. Here we go. The sound of the penny dropping. This one's actually 10 cents. So what suddenly made sense to me all those months ago, and I'm finally getting round to saying today, because why not today? I've had quite a lot to deal with lately, on and off, different things, and so, you know, I'm doing this now actually because I want to, because, yeah, like the title says, this is my story. I did actually write a book, here it is, called Infinitely Stolen, and it's quite very nice, did an alright job actually, but then I decided to update it and made some errors, so I've had to unpublish it now until I edit it again. It's got a lot more bonus content, and yeah, it's about lives being stolen one way or another, things taken from you, childhood even. Which brings me round to the penny dropping, the whole point of it, what I realised. Just thinking how I can actually say this. Okay, so as I grew up throughout my life, what I can say is that I lived with a lot of different people. I was in voluntary care twice, there is a point to this. I was in foster care once. I lived with different relatives, and I lived with my childhood friend and her siblings and family, her mum and dad. A couple of times, really, a few even. And yeah, so I was around quite a lot of different adults and families. But this one particular adult that I lived with, they came to visit me at a later point after I'd had my son. I think I'd been experiencing some kind of domestic violence issues, and I know I was going to a drop-in centre in Wakefield, and eventually I had to ask somebody there to ask me to tell this person to leave. It just wasn't going, and so we sat down because they were outside waiting for me outside the drop-in domestic violence place, and I hadn't asked them to wait for me. Maybe they thought they'd escort me home, make sure I'm safe, whatever. Anyway, it was a bit much, so they sat down with me and asked them to leave, and they still tried to get out of it on the way back, and I was like, no, you really have to go at this point. But what happened, what I'm trying to say, is this certain adult I lived with at a certain point in my life, I won't say which one at this point in time, but they produced documents to an ex-partner of mine who's no longer here, and it said that they were diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic with psychotic tendencies. In fact, at one point somebody contacted me in regards to them being sectioned, but they said they didn't get sectioned, it was all a conspiracy. But then they brought this person to my house many decades ago now, Was it decades even? Yeah, decades. Long time ago now. Yeah, they brought them to my house, and he'd been in a mental institution, so it was like, how did they know each other? But they lived close. In fact, he became a neighbour of this person's. I phoned the mental institution up that he was in, and I mentioned this other adult's name that I'd lived with, and they said that they was aware of them. They couldn't tell me any more than that. Under the Mental Health Act, you're not allowed to be told things disclosed to. But then again, you'd think if it's going to cause you harm, which it does, psychological damage, harm, emotional, yeah, whatever, that's harmful enough, they should tell you. The laws about that should change, really. I mean, if there's a big, great danger to the public, then they'll disclose. But I'm still a member of the public. Anyway, or I was, well, I am, but back then. Anyway, at one point I did get a social worker come to my home even and apologise. But they were that rushed, they didn't even know what they were apologising for. They'd just been sent to apologise to me on behalf of social services. I mean, that's a bit mad itself, isn't it, really? So yeah, I'm ranting on now, I'm diverting, okay, but what I'm letting you know is that I was around a lot of different families. And like I said, that was the reason given why, when I questioned how come I'm not like that. But as a gift also, at some point in life, when this new DNA testing come out, all that, I gifted them a DNA test, and they've got a 1/4% that I haven't. I might have 1% of that gene. But you know, there's a lot of their genes I don't have, so I think they've got that much. But anyway, yeah, so they denied being paranoid schizophrenic with psychotic tendencies. They said it was all a conspiracy. And you just don't know, do you, these days, really? So, and you want to try and believe people, take them at face value and all that, as we do. And we're naive, young, gullible, want to believe people in front of our faces, you know. Anyway, so time went on. I didn't have contact with this person for a very long time. I had a bit of a severe stalking problem, of which I did have some evidences of. Now this other adult didn't have evidences, really, and I don't know, it just seemed to copy a lot. Or continually phone me and tell me that things had happened, and it was weird because they were happening to me, and so I stopped telling them what was happening. But at one point also, when I was with my son's dad, they used to phone a lot on a night and say things. They were on phone for ages, and they'd say things like somebody wanted to kill me but they hadn't yet because they needed to clean up after themselves. I'm just mad stuff like that, really. I mean, why would you phone someone and tell them that? I mean, even if it was true, you just, I don't know, it's a bit mad. Anyway, I had a lot of stalking things going on back in those days, and I had to sign a piece of paper at one point in my life, because I had a child, you see, and back then it's all in the interest and welfare of a child, and so, yeah, there were other things involved, so to speak, but I signed to kind of cut off from this person and even family, anyone. They wanted me to cut off from anyone and everyone. And this was a person who worked for the state. Just a person in a job, really. And I believe this to be all legit, and that's what I had to do, and so I did it. And a few years later, it weren't worth the piece of paper it was written on. That piece of paper was just readied, it meant nothing. So what was the point in it all? I don't know. One day I had to get back in touch with this person. Well, I felt like I had to, because certain corruptions began to happen, and I don't know if I thought that people you turn to for help would have acted so corruptly, and they devastated my life. They left absolute devastation. Yeah, I won't get into that right now. But I made contact. I mean, there was no actual legal piece of paper that said I don't have contact, you know. None. Anyway, I always, all over those years, 6 years, no contact. What if I was wrong? And I grieved for people. But kept strong. Yeah. But, certain things after my son, he was very ill, and when he was going to be stable and going to live, I knew I had to leave and look after my little girl. And what happened there and after, when I asked for help, like I say, it nearly broke me, And that's when I got in touch with them, because I couldn't believe it was happening. Just couldn't believe it. Still to this day can't. And yeah, ultimate betrayal. Never been as betrayed in my life as it turned out in the end, but it shouldn't have been like that, but it is, and that's how it is now, so got to live with that. And yeah, I had reminders of that today because of an appointment, in a way. And just, it's just such sufferings for some people. Saw a little baby on a trolley with an oxygen tank and things, and it was in the same area really that when my son was getting buried, kind of I'd gone through there with him, the doors, which are all painted nice now, and just being around the same place. Sometimes it kind of hits me. Not exactly for all he went through and all I went through, but the outcome. Should have had a stronger outcome. He was strong, I was strong, but should have had a stronger after, you know, and now. But anyway, I have to focus on my little girl, who isn't old enough to leave home and decide to do things however they want. And I have to look after them, and that's what I have to focus on. But yeah, kind of triggered the emotions, and therefore I did flip a coin. Shall I do it? Shall I do the video or not? I said heads for yes, tails for no, and I got heads. So yeah, chance. And then I think when I next throw a coin, it's going to be tails. What is it? Oh no, he's still saying heads. So yeah. So what I'm thinking is about this adult who was diagnosed with being paranoid schizophrenic, psychotic tendencies. I still thought, well, okay, you know, you can't hold mental illness against the person. You've still got to try, and you know, I don't want to be prejudiced and discriminate or be abusive just because, you know, I mean, somebody's got an illness. I want to try and work with them, so to speak, you know, and get through things or whatever. But no, it was all just a false sense of security in some ways again. So giving the person a chance, even though it was me who did actually make the initial first contact after all those years. And at a certain point, years before that, they'd said some other things from when I was a child. I had psychological abuse about someone who died, basically. A little girl. And what the penny dropped, back to the penny dropping, is they'd said a certain thing to me, and I did actually make a statement in some regards to inclusions of that kind of stuff, what they said a long time ago. And obviously my word, their word, oh, they didn't say that, whatever. But the thing is you know, I'm old now. And I'd had contact with them on the phone, video call, and just the way they acted and behaved and things just made me realise, okay, this ain't right, this ain't right here, this isn't right. And after that, I've had no contact. And I made a video, God Sent Angels, and a big massive, like somebody's writing a big massive letter to someone, reply was given to that video. I didn't even read it all because I think it was just all about them. The video wasn't about them, it was about me and my experience, and not their excuses or, I don't know, their story. It was mine. Anyway, I got to a certain point and thought, yeah, okay, we know that's just not right, is it really? So I just deleted it and blocked them. I'm like half a century old, just over now. And it took me half a century to really know, because of a certain behaviour and a certain way they looked at me and nodded and stared. It was a certain blackened stare that I'd seen before when we used to live in another place, and the way, certain ways they behaved and stuff. And this is the adult that was diagnosed with a certain illness. But what I think is that they might have psychopathy from certain things I read, etc. What I looked into. So whoever diagnosed them as being paranoid, schizophrenic, psychotic tendencies, I think they need to add psychopathy to that. And the reason being is because of what clicked into place for me is an event. Okay, you can't just base it on one thing, I know, but I learned that people with psychopathy, they like to cause trauma and harm. And what better way to do it than what I'm going to say in a way. When they came to visit, when my little boy was crawling age, they offered, like they were being genuine and nice and real and all, oh, you go lay yourself down for an hour, get a rest, have a rest, I'll look after him, I'll keep my eye on him. Attitude, yeah. I thought, oh, okay, I thought, well, no harm can come to him, really. My little boy at the time, you know, he'd crawl around the living room, exploring, he's got toys, and there's a safety gate. The safety gate was where the kitchen, between the kitchen divide, and then there was another door into a hallway part, and toilet and another door. But yeah, there was a safety gate, a big, massive, tall, very tall safety gate. So anyway, I went upstairs, laid down, and I thought, it's very quiet. It's not my little boy, like, when he was crawling, he used to make noise, exploring, you know, he'd be investigating. You'd hear noise of him moving, even, and there was nothing. It was very quiet. I thought, nah, this isn't right. This is weird. So I'm going down to check it out. And it's a very good job I did, really. So I opened the living room door, and this adult who'd offered to keep an eye on my son had the back turned. They were laid on the sofa, had the back turned to all the living room, and they were facing the sofa, the back of the sofa, you know. And the safety gate was open in the kitchen and the living room. The safety gate was open. And yeah, so it was the kitchen door, so it was the back door, So I went through the safety gate because I couldn't see my little boy. Went through, he was just going down the back step in the back garden. So there weren't many steps at the back door there in Wakefield, where we lived, Manor Road. But he was going down them. Now imagine, I'd have just gone to sleep for an hour. Like this person suggested, go rest for an hour, I'll look after him. Imagine I didn't know and think about my child like while they were downstairs and the noise or the lack of it. Imagine I hadn't have done that. He could have come to any harm. Through neighbouring gardens, dogs, main roads. And this person, this adult, said to me, I never told them that they had to close the safety gate after them if they opened it. That was their excuse, that was their reason. No apologies. I mean, this adult was decades older than me, almost. Well, either way, they were older than me, yeah. And they needed instructions on how to close the safety gate after them. The safety gate's there and closed to keep your child protected, obviously. You don't need it explaining to you, not really. Why would an adult need to be told to close the safety gate after opening it? I mean, why would they need to open it in the first place? Why would they open a safety gate and the other doors were open? I don't know about what. So the safety gate's open, the kitchen door's open to the outer passageway where there's a toilet as well, and then the back door that leads to the garden, which is open, that was open. And if you go out there, if you were an animal even, a cat, you could go to all neighbouring gardens, go to the front, go onto the road, and wherever other dangers can be. Why would an adult do that? Because another adult who's decades younger than them didn't tell them to close the safety gate if they opened it. Why did they even open it? They didn't make themselves a drink or anything. Obviously they weren't sat there drinking a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or anything. That's what dawned on me. But what dawned on me also is they were the same person that was looking after the little girl. That went missing. He was later found unalive. And the front door had been opened apparently. But who knew who by? And that's what the penny dropped about. I mean, certain things had been said to me psychologically as I grew up or anything, any point in my life, and it's known about, but maybe all the abuse I had, it didn't make me realise and join together that that person was supposedly looking after that other little person that went missing and was found dead in a stream. Apparently their biological parent said that, I didn't say anything. They were upstairs apparently, ironing. And this adult that did that with my child and me, the one who said to me, go lay down, I'll look after him for an hour. And they didn't look after him. They left them at risk. Well, I think that's not just psychological abuse in a way, really. It's, and harm. It's harmful. I mean, worst case scenario, I mean, there was no stream over the road from where we lived. My son could hold his head up from being 3 months old. He was strong. But he could have gone through neighbouring gardens and he could have been savaged by a dog or anything. And that person exposed my child to that. And basically, that was what the pen dropped about. When the last video call I had with them, and the way they stared and nodded their head after a certain other thing that just wasn't right, it just kind of fell into place that, yeah, something's really not right there, is it? And I don't know why I never joined those two things together before. But that was the thing that I realised. There's so many more things to tell, I suppose. But yeah, I guess that's long enough, really. Just never really mentioned that incident or thought of it as similar, connected, or anything like that. I mean, the worst case scenario could have happened to my child. And what would they have done? Sat there or shouted? You didn't tell me to close the safety gate if I opened it. I mean, that's emotional harm to a person, isn't it? What if my child had died? My child could have died. And I only recently, when I made that God Sent Angels video, thought about that incident and joined it and thought about the psychopathy because of stuff I was reading. And it just made me kind of join things that maybe I'm right or I'm wrong to join. But that's part of my life events, which actually involved my little boy at the time. But me as an adult to another adult. I mean, that would have been awful. But they were prepared to do that, weren't they? They did that. Excuse me, so what kind of a person would do that? I can only think of, the only kind of person that would do that is somebody who's got psychopathy. Why else would somebody do something like that, really? I mean, now I'm older, and I can think about things differently or analyse them differently, and there's so much information available. Sometimes some things take a while, you know, for the penny to drop, but there you go, that's what the penny dropped about.